I opened my eyes, my breath caught in my throat. Darkness. The echoing steps of heavy boots against concrete rang loudly in the obsidian void around me. But the darkness wasn't just around me, it was in me, choking me. I was suddenly aware that this wasn't my bed, my room, or my reality. 3 days ago, the experiment sounded exciting. Live someone else's life for a week, the ad proclaimed. It was like an extreme version of the reality TV shows, where people swap lives. As a struggling college student, the $10,000 prize at the end of the week was hard to ignore. We were 8. I remember the way we all sat in that bright conference room. Clinical white walls, a large oval table, and cold steel chairs. A facilitator handed each of us a small silver key with an accompanying address. There was an aura of excitement mixed with nervous anticipation. The rules were simple. The key was the ticket to someone else's home, job, and life. All we had to do was fit in, play the part, and avoid suspicion. At the end of the week, everyone would reunite to share their experiences. The address I received was in a district unfamiliar to me. The building, old and crumbling, had a shadowy facade that seemed a stark contrast to the modern urban landscape. With each step up the creaky wooden staircase, I could feel the weight of the past and the lives lived in these walls. It took only a day to realize that my swap wasn't ordinary. Messages, cryptic and hurried, began appearing on the bathroom mirror. It's after me. Another in the drawer of the kitchen. If you see it, run. By the second night, the real horror began. A noise, an imperceptible whisper at first, grew louder, echoing down the hallway of the old building. I opened the door to find a note stuck on it. You are me now. It knows. And tonight, 3 days into the experiment, I realized that this wasn't just a game. It was a relentless hunt. The steps I heard, they weren't just footsteps. It was chasing me. Crouching in the corner of this unfamiliar room, I could hear a scratching sound. The scent of damp rot filled my lungs, pressing down on me like the weight of a gravestone. I could barely make out the glint of something sharp scraping across the floor outside the door. Knock, knock, knock. There it was, the dreaded sound. A slow, deliberate knock that seemed to mock my vulnerability. The voice that followed was inhuman, a raspy whisper. You took her place. Now, you are mine. My heart raced. I remembered the emergency contact card the facilitators gave us. Fumbling in the darkness, I dialed the number with trembling fingers. The experiment is over. I need help. I whispered, desperate. A calm voice on the other end replied, you must finish the week. Every participant knew the risks. Embrace your new identity. The call disconnected. In the echoing silence, I realized the voice on the phone wasn't human either. It was part of the game. Time had lost all meaning. I didn't know if minutes or hours had passed. Each second, a relentless onslaught of anxiety. My phone's screen cast a pale blue light, revealing dusty cobwebs and faded wallpaper. An old diary lay on a wooden table, covered in dust. Perhaps some answers. I reached out, hesitating for a moment, and then flipped it open. June 5th. I thought it was just a myth, but it's real. The Shadow Man is real. Every time I close my eyes, I feel it near me. Every time I turn around, it's just a pace behind. I don't think I have much time left. Reading on, I discovered the previous tenant, the woman whose life I was living, had conjured a being, a dark shadow entity, through a forbidden ritual. It was bound to her, hunting, always one step behind. The ritual was her attempt to gain power, success, a shortcut in life. But she paid a price, and now, having stepped into her life, I had unknowingly accepted the consequences of her actions. With every entry, her desperation grew palpable. She detailed the way she tried to escape it. Sacred symbols, talismans, exorcisms. Nothing worked. Her last entry read, tomorrow, I join the experiment. I've heard rumors that the entity is bound to identity. If someone else becomes me, perhaps it will follow them instead. God forgive me. A cold realization settled. The experiment wasn't a game. It was her escape plan. As I read, I could feel a presence growing stronger. The temperature around me dropped. A thump echoed, followed by another, then another. They grew louder, closer. The Shadow Man was approaching. Knock, knock, knock. He was at the door. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Other whispers accompanied his, like a discordant symphony of the damned. Driven by pure adrenaline, I scoured the diary for a solution, anything that could save me. There, in the final pages, was a sketch of a symbol, a loop intersected by lines, surrounded by archaic runes. An incantation followed, by identity given, by name I bind, shift the pursuer, leave me behind. With no time to lose, I grabbed a chalk from a nearby shelf. I drew the symbol on the floor, and began reciting the incantation. The room quaked. The chorus of voices grew louder, deafening. The floor beneath the symbol began to glow, casting the room in an eerie light. I could see them, silhouettes of torment, reaching out to me, eyes glowing with a deep crimson. The Shadow Man stood at their forefront, his form even more menacing. As I finished the incantation, a blinding light filled the room. A force pulled me, tugging at my very essence. And then, silence. I awoke in the clinical white conference room, gasping for air. The facilitator and the other participants stared, eyes wide in horror. You're back, one of them whispered. Did it work? I asked. It did, the facilitator replied, his voice trembling. But you've brought them here with you. The game, it's not over. And in the dark corners of the room, the crimson eyes began to glow once more. The room seemed to shrink, as the walls became alive with writhing shadows. The once sterile environment now felt more like a cage, confining us with these unearthly beings. Everyone else in the room, oblivious to the events of the past few days, stared at me, questions and accusations reflecting in their eyes. Among them was a woman, her face gaunt, eyes tired, the original identity I'd swapped with. She approached me, her voice heavy with regret. I never meant for any of this. I thought, I hoped, switching identities would free me. But now, I retorted, we're all trapped. Suddenly, a chilling voice resonated. The game is not over. The facilitator, or whatever he had become, grinned maliciously. You merely advanced to the next level. The crimson eyes of the shadows focused on us, an insatiable hunger evident in their gaze. The facilitator continued, the entity is bound by identity, but identities can merge. To escape, two souls must become one, deciding whose consciousness prevails. The woman and I exchanged a horrified glance. It was clear one of us would have to sacrifice our consciousness, our very self, for the other to survive. Determined to end the nightmare, I offered, take me, let her go, end this game. The woman grabbed my arm, desperation in her eyes. No, I started this, let it be me. Amidst our argument, a loud roar echoed. The room began to warp and twist. The boundaries of reality were breaking. The decision needed to be immediate. Decision, that was it. I remembered the diary. One final incantation was scribbled hastily in the margin, one that might merge our souls, freeing us from this entity. Without wasting another second, I began chanting the words, dragging the woman into the symbol I had drawn earlier. She joined in, our voices harmonizing, intertwining like the merging of our souls. The room exploded with light. The entities shrieked, contorting in pain. The walls trembled, and for a moment, everything felt like it was tearing apart. And then, a deafening silence. I awoke in a familiar setting, my bedroom. Morning light filtered through the curtains, birds chirping in the distance. Was it all a dream? As I sat up, memories flooded in, not just mine, but hers as well. We were one. Her regrets, her hopes, her nightmares, all merged with mine. Her voice whispered in my mind, a gentle reminder of our shared existence. The game of identity was over, but its effects would linger forever. The entities were defeated, banished to the shadows from whence they came. However, the weight of two souls in one body was a constant reminder of the price of playing with identity. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, I realized that our combined consciousness had its advantages. We were stronger, smarter, and more resilient together. The horrors of the past became a distant memory, overshadowed by the promise of a brighter future. Yet, sometimes in the dead of night, when everything is silent and the world is asleep, I still hear a faint whisper, a chilling reminder. The game is never truly over.